I'm Gerard Grant. I'm the Vice President of Technology, Innovation and Support Services at Pramerica. And I'm not sort of a CX person, so if that's a confession or if I'm in trouble because of that, then hopefully you'll stay with me as I disrupt the particular session. When I was practicing for this earlier on in the week, back at the office, the teams told me, you got to slow down. You're in London. They're not going to get your accent. They're not going to get the pace. But I was delighted this morning when I came in and found Jim, the audiovisual guys from Derry. So if none of the rest of you get it, Jim will have it all for you at the end. So what I'm going to talk about today a little bit is what we call adding intuition to intelligence. So you talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about robotic process automation, bots, chatbots. And, you know, the brute force way of managing them in the past is getting us a certain amount of results in terms of automation and efficiency. But to really move that from the back office to the front office in terms of customer experience, we have to think a little bit about intuition. So, who's Pramerica? Pramerica is part of Prudential Financial Inc. US, I have to say that, not Prudential here in the UK. Prudential in the US, Asia and Europe provide life insurance, investments, annuities, retirements and group insurance products to both institutions and individuals. Over 50,000 people work in Prudential across the globe providing those services. And Pramerica is an integral part of that delivery solution. We've 1,500 people based in the northwest of Ireland in Donegal, providing sort of three main structural services to Prudential. One is technology. So we manage the full software development life cycle for many of the technology products Prudential uses across the globe. And that's everything from legacy mainframe. We have an application who is celebrating its 50th birthday this week and still in production. It was the largest commercial application outside the military in the 60s in the United States and is supported exclusively out of the Ireland operation. And we also support the brand new digital products that Prudential is bringing to the market to help people not only, grow their wealth, but also protect their investments. We also have a large professional shared services division who provide both back office and front customer-facing supports for both employees and end customers, and some very sophisticated services around data science and actuarial. And that includes pricing products both in Europe, Asia, and the US for our US business. So very, very diverse range. But the piece I'm going to talk about today is innovation. And what we have in Letterkenny is a full-time innovation capability, staffed with a lab, academic collaboration and integration, support from the government to help us move forward and provide proof of concept environments for our customers in the US. Remember, we only have one customer, Prudential, but for every business unit within that allows us to have a very deep conversation with them around, where do you want your technology to go? How would you like to manage your customer? If you could do this, what would it look like? So the innovation lab and the innovation capability is really, really important. Prudential globally spends around 1.6 billion on IT every year. So getting the maximum amount of return for that is really, really important. And part of that is innovating and, as Darryl talked earlier, using microservices to accelerate the conversation between us and the customer and also provide a much better customer experience. So, as an enterprise, we've identified 8 technology trends with disruptive potential. Not just disruption or a way to enhance our own business, but ultimately these are technologies that could disrupt our own business. We talk about the fintech and the emerging companies in the insurtech and fintech space. They could take each one of those, or any one of them, and disrupt something we have in Prudential. So we have to be very conscious of that landscape. But it's not just the individual 8, it's what we call the power of combinations. So the 2 I'm going to be talking to about today is insights into action and automation and robotic process automation. But there are other combinations that make a lot of sense. And we measure these in what we call impact, adoption, and exploitation. So we try to understand the business impact. Where can each one of these disruptors have a business impact us, either positively or negatively? How is our adoption of each of these technologies taking place? And if we are adopting it, are we really exploiting it? So I'll give you an example in the cloud space. Right now, large enterprises like us, if you think about Prudential's over 145 years old, we're starting to move application systems to the cloud. There's obviously security, regulatory, performance concerns across a large swathe of challenges in doing that. But what we're doing is we're using the cloud right now because we realize there's going to be a business impact. It's going to give us some flexibility with AWS, Azure, or Google. We also, we're at an adoption level would say, yeah, we're heavily adopted. We have a lot of instances in the cloud. We have a lot of systems in the cloud. Maybe not all production, a lot of development and QA. But in terms of exploitation, no. So we're not like the small startup companies who can exploit things like serverless architecture and Lambda functions, or who can exploit intermittent availability and only spin up resources when they need them. We're not exploiting. So we need to move from adoption to exploiting in various different sectors within the grid. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, this is our frame of reference. This is in the office what we call our frame of reference, and we call it from Hollywood to Silicon Valley. So if there's any baby boomers in the audience, would anybody shout out and know who this is? HAL, 1968, Space Odyssey 2001, HAL. And any Gen Xers? Who's this guy? Well, there should be a lot of people of that demographic. Terminator 2, yeah. And this is, for our millennials, iRobot. So these are all where we get our frame of reference in terms of sentient beings from the movies. Now, what it actually turns into from the manufacturers is Watson, Siri, and Alexa. So not exactly the same. Although, as each of these guys came to the end of their film or the end of their, the end of their life cycle and planned obsolescence, they all got a bit paranoid and a bit killy, as it turned out. So maybe not the best examples. But that's our frame of reference in terms of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And there's sort of two different types. There's that brute force one we talk about where, through computing power and through raw materials, we can come up with the necessary combinations to solve a problem. And that's great, but that costs money. And really, that's at the behest of the military and Google and people like that are able to do that. But there's also, the learning element. And that's the bit that enterprises are starting to lean into. How can they get either robotic process automation, platforms, tools to learn? To learn in a meaningful way that moves their business forward, that automates a process, that reduces their cost, that makes the customer journey a little bit better. So, what does a bot actually look like? So, not as sexy as the last slide. This is actually Penny. And Penny is part of our digital workforce in Letterkenny. And Penny is a virtual desktop, essentially, with code, with algorithms, with ingestion capabilities to take in variables, and the ability to process those and learn them multiple times and learn what works and what doesn't. But that's Penny. If you look in a little bit closer to Penny, what Penny actually does is, with our programming, take manual repetitive tasks from people who can be doing higher value work. That's our objective with people like Penny. And we have Penny, and we've got Robbie, and we've got all sorts of different bots who run and are doing different administrative tasks and different tasks. But they're also learning. So Penny can learn in the event of a failure that restarting a particular service might bring it back to action. Penny can also learn that in the event of a failure, the best course of action might be to cut a ServiceNow ticket or send an email to a particular support group. And Penny can do that depending on the time of day, knowing who's available, knowing where people's presence management is at, and all the other APIs and integrations that we push into Penny to let her learn and know about her environment. But predominantly, most of it is coding, and it's teaching as opposed to learning. But what sort of impact does Penny have? So if you look at what Penny's doing today, somebody in our operation took approximately 8.5 hours to do. So this is an imaging workflow application, very familiar in our industry. And there's lots of checks and balances in the overall process. There's items that are not coming in good order, there are exceptions, there's database routines, there's all sorts of stored procedures to be run to get it to the end of the check-in process. Historically, it took 8.5 hours a day and was repeated multiple times a day for quality reasons. Now, we've taken that, again, the important piece about this, we've asked the employee that was doing this to take this and automate her own job, which she did. And took that from 8.5 hours down to 30 minutes. But not only did she take it down to 30 minutes, but because of the level of automation, the sophistication of the tools, was able to do much more work, was able to repeat it every 2 hours, or as many times as we wanted to repeat it. So that there's a much better accuracy rate. So it eliminates human error, 100% accuracy rate. Enables employees to focus on high-value work, let the robots do what they need to do. And allows, again, a commodity system or a commodity operation to be fully automated and enhanced as well. Not just automated, but enhanced. Remove redundant and repetitive work, and again, we're talking to our HR and our talent people about this all the time. The more we can do this, the more we can increase staff morale, staff engagement, move them into higher value roles. This person is now moving from an operator to a technologist. By virtue of what she's automated, she's become a leading expert. So again, we're starting to, manage careers through this automation as well. But ultimately, reduced 2,268 hours out of the process. And in our world, that's a person and a half for a year. So it's quite a large saving in terms of automation. But again, mostly training, a little bit of learning, but very much in the back office, that's where RPA, automation, and AI sits today. Probably not as sexy as some of the videos you're going to see later on about it, but that's it actually working. So why do we do this? We do this to influence the customer journey because we want to take particular technologies and tactics and figure out where we can insert them into the customer journey for Prudential and make it a much better customer experience. If you look at today's customer journey, and that's a bit of an eye chart, so I won't focus too much on that. But today's customer journey, and not so long ago in my company, we had 336 web presences and 1,500 1-800 numbers. So customers had a lot of choice where to go, but maybe not a lot of direction on where to go. And if you look at the platforms, and we're probably narrowing in on calls here in the first instance, the platforms are typically on-premise, client-server, complex integration. Not really that seamless. Now, that didn't happen by design. In a company like ours, that happens through acquisition, that happens through disposal, that happens through technology acquirement, it happens through some lines of business moving faster than others. It's not intentional that the customer journey becomes that disjointed, but it does. And what are the results? So you get that experience of inconsistency, whether you're calling for a death claim, or whether you're calling group insurance to report an absence, or whether you're calling to make an investment. There's literally no consistency of experience from that perspective. Now, some will say there's subject matter experts in each of those lines of business, and that's why it's so important, and that's why it's so different. But everybody can make the worst special excuse. But when it comes to the first touch point of customer interaction and it comes to getting the customer into enterprise, it's a bit lazy. So what does it do? It's product defined as opposed to customer focused. And as well as that, it creates this impression of a lack of trust. So before you used to get anything done, you used to jump through all these hoops. And in the US context, we've sort of 6 verifiers that you have to match, and the agent has to walk you through those 6 discrete pieces of information and match them up before they even go forward in the conversation. So the lack of trust and that impression of jumping through hoops. And the handoffs to other departments, like Darryl referenced it earlier as well, the handoff to other departments is, I'll transfer you now to Jim, and Jim's going to know exactly what you need, and you transfer him off to Jim, and Jim goes, who are you? Okay. And Jim has no data on the screen. And Jim doesn't know why you're calling. And you start all over again. And that becomes very frustrating. So that's sort of typically where, the customer journey is at for a lot of companies today. I know for our company, 18 to 24 months ago, that this is what we looked like. And the person who sort of nominated me to come here and talk about that is our Chief Customer Officer in the US, who's very passionate about this subject. And he talks about being, customer-focused, customer-driven, digital, all those things. But when we get down to the technology and tactics, this is what you're dealing with. Authentication challenges, CTI, multiple products from different lines of business. How do you pull them all together and talk to the customer as a customer with potentially 5 products with your organization? You don't know if they're interested in buying more. You don't know if they want to dispose of some. So how do you use machine learning and AI to help that along? So you should be able, in our business, we should nearly know when you're going to call. You have a history, you have a pattern. Humans are, it's very easy to predict their behavior. We should know people are calling in April at tax season to maybe do some work on their mutual fund so they can get a value of how much they gain so they know what appropriate taxes to pay. We should know somebody who's coming up with a child to be educated at college, and they maybe want to take out a loan against their 401k or their retirement plan to start that journey with them in college. We should know that. We should be able to consolidate all the data when they do contact to support Know Your Customer, what the identity guy talked about earlier on, Mick. What does that mean? Can we now interrogate your device? We know your location. We can hear the background noise. That's the number you usually call from, and that is your voice fingerprint. Well, let's just do that in the blink of an eye and go, hello, Gerard, how can I help you? Omni-channel and platform independent. Customer interactions in the past were driven by the platform that was available. So if you were working in the life insurance business and a customer called into you, opened up the life insurance platform. You're working in the group insurance business or the investments, you opened up that platform. The platform drove the interaction with the customer. Again, that has to be extracted out. Web-based subscription, cloud-based, built into your Internet Explorer toolbar. Your customer interaction, your customer data should be available there immediately. So that's how you move that conversation forward. And sentiment platforms, not just for negativity, but opportunity. So managing sentiment and voice and words with tools like Variant and Nuance and things like this, that not only picks out when somebody's unhappy and I need a supervisor or I need a manager, but picks out an opportunity. Whether it's this person has now, come into money and is looking for an investment. Whether this person is interested in another product because of the stage of their life. We should be able to pick that up. We should be able to talk about that with them and nudge them in the right direction. So again, why is this so important? Because we've done some research about this, and I made a joke earlier about HAL and the AIs and the millennials. But a lot of this research for us in particular is around what we call the 80-year-old millennial. And this is work we've done with Candar in the US, Candar Futures. And the reason we've done this, and particularly in the US context, is people are coming to work later, later into their 20s. They're working less, they're wanting to retire earlier, but they're living longer. So as you can see from an insurance company's point of view, the window that you have either as an institutional client, Hewlett-Packard, Coca-Cola, people like that, to charge them for their employees, or as an individual client to pay for services, that window's shrinking all the time. So how do we combat some of that? Well, one of the ways is, what does the future of work look like? And, among our survey candidates, 75% of the workforce in the US will be made up of freelancers, the gig economy, by the time the 80-year-old millennial comes around. Now, what does that mean in terms of us? So if you think about all the corporate protections and defined benefit pension schemes and all the social protections that aren't really in the US compared to here in Europe, companies like Prudential have to step in and provide flexible benefits for these gig economy workers. And they'll want to do that digitally. They'll want to do that in one place. They'll be less product-focused and more journey-focused in terms of their time in life. And it'll be their own money they're spending, so it'll be probably a little bit more competitive. 68% of millennials actually said that, the main purpose of work is to earn enough money to live how you want. Now, that's sort of contradictory to what we think of them having sort of a higher purpose and, work's just a thing to get done so you can do something else more important. As it turns out, not true among the cohort we surveyed. If we look at the fear of the rise of the machine, millennials are the first real generation that are, one, they're the original digital natives, but they're actually afraid of what's coming because they maybe know that there's an ability for technology to outstrip their learning through AI and machine learning. And they also know that they're the first real high-velocity consumers of the technology. People like me and many people in this room who work in technology understand a little bit about how it works, network servers, data centers, IP, all that sort of stuff. We have a generation of people now who don't. They go to an app store, go click and go, looks good. But they know that then can outstrip them. Also as well, that group has algorithmic directed lives. And if we're not in there as a company, nudging them in the right direction for our product services, then we lose out. So while millennials have access to all this information, the AIs and the algorithms are narrowing their focus and reinforcing their own beliefs. So we have to nudge them in the right direction of the products and services we think they should be interested in, we'd like to sell. Cap that with 50 billion devices by 2020 connected to the Internet of Things, things start to get a little bit crazy. If we fast forward then to health, which is really, again, an insurance company, and we don't have a property and casualty business like AXA, so we can't avoid death, as it were. But in terms of keeping healthy, it's interesting, millennials and people's approaches to diagnosis and to working with the medical community. The advent of wearables, the propensity for people to share their data, either in a community fund setting or with a medical professional, is going to drive much more data into the system. When it comes to making a medical diagnosis, 27% of those surveyed said they would trust an AI assistant. That's not WebMD or something, but that's an actual proper AI medical diagnosis. So, I want to just do a couple of project examples, and I've sort of localized them for the UK, so apologies if I've stolen anybody's logo. So one of them is fraud. So you get a note or you get an email, 7 o'clock in the evening, and it's at home or it's on your email and you can't phone the bank. What am I going to do? And it's a fraud and you have suspicions but you don't know. And people are preying on your insecurities around this. Education has been historically the answer to this. Constant emails and training. Don't click the link. Don't click the link. Jesus, I've clicked the link. All right. Don't do it. But how does machine learning and AI help in this? So I'm gonna fire through this one because I'm running out of time. But literally, can we create an application that takes a photo of the letter or takes a photo of the communication and knows how we write, know how we publish communications, know where our legal symbols are, know where our address is, broadly can see within a probability range. That's a genuine communication, or it's fake. If it's genuine, delete, throw it in the bin. Sorry for your troubles. If it's, click to call. Within your own mobile banking app, can you take a photo of a communication and then tell you if it's genuine or not? And if it is genuine, go ahead and call us. And not only when you call us, we'll know what it's about. So thank you for your call. That's a really different or differentiated customer experience from getting that communication, going and find the 1-800 number to contact your bank, figure out if you're through to the right area. Is it fraud prevention? Is it the actual people who sent me the letter? All this sort of stuff. No, it's in your app. Take a photo. Go. And the second one, which is close to my heart at the minute, is connected world. So we talk about the Internet of Things and we talk about how that can help the customer journey. But I'm talking about very personally and helping a father's journey. So end of the month, as I call it, get a text from my son. He's in college in UCD in Dublin. Dad, can you send me some money? I presume we've all been there, and if you haven't been there, you're going there. And I go to Alexa, transfer 150 euros to Matthew's account. Alexa comes back, Gerard, you only have 180 euros in your account, and you don't get paid for another 10 days. Things are not going well. Office 365 comes in and goes, you're scheduled to travel to Dublin today at 9:50 a.m. as well. And your car only has 134 miles of range left in it. So things are not going well, all right? These are all connected. Today, not really possible, seamlessly, but you can do this today through APIs, feeds, ETLs, things like that. Okay, so not far away. Within 18 to 24 months, this interaction will be quite seamless. So, Alexa comes up and thinks, well, you know what we could do? Would you like me to send Matthew 150 euros via PayPal? Because that's connected to your credit card. And this is the AI piece where, it's decisions plus optionality. Now there's where, a payday lender or somebody else could also intercept the process and say, do you want to do it a completely different way? So I go, yes, sounding depressed. And those sorts of customer experiences or those sorts of UI, UX, where there is no UI, it's Alexa or it's Siri or it's Cortana, is where it's going to go. They will have the information. They will be able to feed it back to you. And on that, I'm going to finish because I'm getting the evil eyes from the chair. All right. I want to thank you very, very much for your time. And if you have any questions, go ahead.